What is that one thing, that one habit that you have in your riding that you know you should change, but you just can't seem to change it? For example, you still lean forward going into every jump, or you know that you pull on the reins when you ask for the canter transition, or you know that you always drop your inside shoulder when you're coming through that turn. What is that one thing for you? We all have habits. We all have these patterns that we've developed in our movement that are then in our riding that can be so difficult to change. What I want to go over in today's video is why these patterns can be so tough to change, but how to use a specific sequence to change any old habit that you have, anything that you want to improve for your riding. I'm Callie, founder of Horse Class, and you're here watching The Weekly Show. So let's jump right into this idea of habits and patterns. So first of all, our habits can be developed either from things that we learned before in our riding. Push your heels down, pull your shoulders back, turn your toes out, all of the things that have sometimes been taught and then misinterpreted through riding that actually make us so much less stable in the saddle. And I have other videos that go into some of these common riding instructions and how they can actually hold you back. But our habits can be created by old instructions, old advice that we then developed. Our habits can also be created by old injuries that we have. For example, if you've had an injury and now you're even unconsciously compensating for it, you're doing something to protect an area of your body, to not maybe move that shoulder as much that you injured, or to keep the pressure off of that knee. Maybe the pain's still there, and maybe it's an injury that was long ago, but your body's still remembering it and having that compensating pattern. Or maybe it's something that you do elsewhere in life. Maybe you used to dance ballet and you're really used to pushing up onto your toes and having that pushing feeling, so it's really hard to let your ankle sink and let the weight come down through the back of your leg when you're riding. There's so many different things that affect our patterns. But here's the thing. Oftentimes, riders try to change these patterns just by hearing the advice and then doing it as they're in motion. Oftentimes, as they're doing the thing where it's most challenging. For example, they try the canter transition over and over, or they keep jumping around the jump course knowing that they shouldn't lean at their fences, but still doing it every single time. So why does this happen? Why do we know that we need to change something and yet we can't? It has to do with the way that our body and our brain remembers these movements. These movements are there for a function. They started for some reason, whether it helps us or not. And our brain is going to, one, do the things that has the most repetition, and it's going to always default, especially in times of more stress, times that we are more in the sympathetic zone of the nervous system. When we're in those times, we're always going to revert to those old patterns, the patterns that have the strongest pathways in our brain. So how do we change this? We need to go through a sequence to not only realize the bad habit that we have, but to introduce a new idea and to give that new idea enough time to have that strong pathway to actually overcome the old pathway. And we have to do it in times when we can be aware of our body, when we can move slowly, and when we can really feel the new way. Not in the times of stress when we're flying around the arena or trying to jump that bigger course. So let's go through the 5 steps that you need in order to identify and change an old habit. Step 1 is the awareness of the old pattern. Let's use, as an example, pushing your heels down really hard and bracing into the stirrups. This one is so common for riders because we always hear heels down. So first you have to have that awareness of this pattern is not serving me. When I push my heels down really hard, it braces the joints in my legs, it pushes the saddle down into my horse's back, it makes me uncomfortable, I can't move as fluidly. So first you know, okay, I want to stop bracing against my stirrups so I can move more fluidly with my horse. Step 2 is to experiment. Try new things. And this is where, especially in riding, it can be so rigid of have to do this and this and this, and this is the way that you need to sit. But allow yourself the freedom to try different movements. What does it feel like if you bring your leg back? What does it feel like if you soften your ankle? What does it feel like if you make all these other movements with your body? So have fun, find that freedom where you can just experiment and try different things. That's step number 2. Now, through that experimentation, and hopefully through some help that can help you find where that new idea is, what that new feeling is. This can be the way that I teach through exercises, through the online courses, through the books that we have, but it can also be through a great instructor that gives you, this is where your leg needs to be, this is how your foot needs to feel on the stirrup. So through that experimentation, you find where you're more comfortable. You find the new habit. Step number 3 is to practice the new idea. So this is where it's so important to practice going slowly. Practice where there's not a lot of other stress and where you can really feel the sensation and the idea of the new posture or the new movement in your body. Step number 4 is to be able to go back and forth. So now this is where we don't want to just be in the new, we actually want to be able to go back to the old, because now you're starting to have the ability to identify, okay, now I'm in my old habit, and now over here is the new idea, the new position or the new movement. So we're able to go back and forth. And then finally, step number 5 is to really give yourself repetition for that new idea. Now you start to challenge it a little more. You see, can I go up into the canter? Can I canter longer? If it's maybe a jumping habit, which can be especially hard to change because we've got that one moment in the air over the jump, but you create jumping grids so that your horse is going through and you've got 4 jumps in a row that you're able to practice this new idea over. So you really create that repetition, because through that repetition, the neural pathway, that brain connection for the new idea will become stronger and stronger. And this is really the key to the new idea being available in moments where there's not time to think about it and you just have to do it. This is why I encourage my riders to practice so many downward transitions, really using their body well, shortening their rein, finding that feeling of where they do a downward transition in a really stable and aligned posture, and doing it so much that then in the moment where the horse has a spook or has a bolt and a reaction is needed in just that split second, the rider is able to do it because that new pathway is there. If we don't give ourselves the time to have enough repetition going slowly, then as soon as our nervous system is activated, we're in a moment of stress and reaction, we can go back to the old. And that's what can be so frustrating. So make sure that you give yourself that repetition, you practice the new. I hope these 5 steps were helpful, and I would love to hear from you. What is a habit that you have in your riding that you would love to change? Put it in the comments down below, and even better, check in after you have gone through these steps and let us know how it's going. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to learn more about riding and get more riding tips, join my free mini course, Better Riding in 7 Days. The link is below. I'd love to see you there. Thank you so much for watching.